Okay, so now that we have established that the Bonanza is a runner, okay, so that was a couple days ago. I had some good weather. Actually, got some rain. Who'd have thunk it? So I am back in the shop doing some more shop things. We do have a little bit of an update on the chaos. I got the first wing panel constructed. It's not fully sanded out. Obviously, I've got some shaping to do on the tip as well as the leading edge, but for the most part, it's done. Got to move on to the other one. So I thought I'd take a break from this and move on to the Bonanza. Now, before I go into the next steps here and what I'm doing with the wing, um, what you saw was literally from beginning to finish what I did to start the engine. Okay, so I assembled the airplane inside. That's pretty easy. Two wing bolts, connect everything on the inside, and take it outside. So a couple of things of note that I do want to mention is that I was getting some signal issues. I'm using a Radio Master receiver just for ground testing here in the shop. I will not be flying with that receiver just because they have these weird tunable frequency thing that I just don't fully trust on these larger models. So I think that's what was flipping out a little bit. But in addition to that, I had some voltage dropping too, so that may have been an issue as well. Also, my transmitter was a little low on voltage. At the end of that, I did get a notification from my transmitter that needed to be charged. So I'm not looking at the signal though. It was fine. The connection was fine. But anyway, weird things going on. So Radio Master, yeah, don't really fully trust Radio Master stuff. It's a good tool, okay, but it's not an instrument. There's a difference. So that being said, I have been able to do some additional running of the engine where I'm just doing the break-in procedure where you put it up to full throttle, and for OS on the instructions for this engine, it says to run it rich, so turn the needle valve in so that the engine slows down, or turn it out. Sorry, turn the needle valve out so that the engine slows down. So you're giving it more fuel, and then you turn it back in to make it speed up, okay? So I've got one tank through on that. I want to do a few more tanks and just get the thing treated right. Now I am swinging the 16.6 prop on that, but I may not be flying on that prop. I haven't decided yet. I think I'll get a little bit more thrust and maybe speed out of a 15.6, but yeah, I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure. So to be decided, but as we go along, and I'll inform you how I make that decision, how I come to it. So let's stop me talking and I'll get into what we're actually doing here today. So up on the bench is the wing. So I have in my possession here a Bonanza wing. I've already serviced the landing gear, as I've mentioned previously, just because I want to make sure that metal moving parts are serviced. So lubricated, springiness, all the things. I've replaced the main wheels with Dubro wheels. Okay, so that's in good working order. Everything else seems to be working, but we've got a problem. We want to replace the servos, and looking over the construction manual, the control horn for the flaps is actually a piece of plywood. So I'm not too worried about that, but I am concerned about this. Let's talk a little bit about this. So we're dealing with old plastic that is kind of yellowed. And what I mean by yellowed is this is what virgin nylon looks like. That does not look good. We can try to clean this and clean some dust and stuff, but honestly, it's not that dirty. This plane, I'm pretty sure, has never flown, so I don't think it's oil. I think it's just old. On top of that, you've got old plastic that is a plastic clevis with a plastic horn. We're going to fix this, okay? We've got some additional hardware that we're going to replace as well as the servo. So we've got these control horns, the half-A control horns from Dubro. Those will work just fine for what we need to do. And we've got a couple of options here. We've got the safety lock quick links. These are plastic, but again, it's that virgin nylon that we talked about. It's a lot beefier, but it has a metal pin that locks. That's what's cool about these, is that it locks. But you can also get away with the older style clearly older style. The 256 spring steel quick links. Okay, these are great. And this is what they look like. And it's just a piece of spring steel that screws on. And then you have a vinyl tube that slips over top. So it's a little bit more streamlined, a little less bulky than this. So we'll take off the old clevis and see what I'm feeling I want to use. I'm leaning probably toward the spring steel quick links just for simplicity's sake and adjustability more than anything too. Other than that, you know, we've got a soldered end here and metal here, so I'm okay with this part of it. I just want to replace that. Now I'm going to get into something here that's a little controversial, and I know that it's controversial because it's like nose holes. Everybody's got one, okay? Servos. So here's the deal. Let's dig up the servos that the manual calls for on this airplane, and we'll have a little history lesson, shall we say. All right, so I thought it said, I'm probably thinking of another airplane, just did some additional digging for reference stuff for you guys. So the instructions do not actually call out a specific brand or size of servo. It's just sort of like standard size servos is all it says. And then in fact, when you go and look at the build instructions, the logos are kind of blurred out. So the logos between Hi-Tech and Futaba at the time in the 90s, they're kind of similar. So it's okay. Don't worry about it. So we'll go based off of what's in the airplane, which is Futaba S3004. So it's a 90s era servo, perfectly good. Good at the time, but it's only supported by one bearing, and it's at the top. It's not supported below. So what's worth noting, though, is the torque specification, okay? 6 volts is 57 ounce-inches of torque. Cool. That sounds about right. That's what we need. 60 size airplane. Perfectly capable. Okay, so these servos that I purchased off Amazon, okay, number one, we've already discussed and established the issue with plastic gear servos, okay? So I am going with metal gear servos. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well, these servos are not name brand servos, okay? They're just cheap ones off Amazon, okay? I'm not going to tell you the brand because I know people are going to complain and be humans, okay? Let's be decent humans about this, okay? From a pure paper perspective, the amount of torque that these servos can provide is 166 ounce-inches. Same voltage. 6 volts, but these servos can also go up to 7.2 volts. Now, the S3004s can probably go up to 7.2 volts too. Okay, so I'm just doing this as a paper exercise. Just, you know, okay, bear with me here, okay? So from a non-metric based perspective, I've used these servos on a number of airplanes that are just sort of like airplanes I don't really care about. I have yet to have a failure on them. Now, the manufacturing technology of these servos is probably better than that of 20 years ago, or at least on par, I would think. And the reality is that a lot of these non-name brand servos made in the same factories as other name brand servos. I hate to tell you, that's the honest truth. So from a non-metric perspective, I'm perfectly comfortable flying this airplane with these servos. So if you don't like it, it's not your model. It's not your flying style. I'm not going to be doing 3D with this. I'm going to be flying the pattern, mild aerobatic maneuvers. I'm going to be respecting the crap out of this airplane. Okay, let me tell you. I will not be doing, you know, crazy loops and rolls. I might do a loop here or there, but it's not going to be over and over and over again. I'm not doing a 3D aerobatic plane where I need all the torque in the world and all the reliability in the world because I just don't need it, okay? So If you don't like it, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. This is my opinion. Take it for what you want. We're not here to debate it. Let's move on with life. So with all of the controversy out of the way and what I've been able to try to educate you guys on in terms of hardware and stuff, I am going to put a couple of drops of lubrication into the pin hinges and go through and start changing servos. And so enjoy. So the FPS 148 servo rated at roughly 42 ounce-inches of torque. So pretty sure we're getting an upgrade here regardless. Really, really old servo. This is probably early 90s, late 80s kind of servo. For those that don't know this old school trick, it's just a little piece of thread, and I use pink because it was cheap and it's very visible so that I can do a quick check, and even if it's like down a tube or something, I can easily see it visually. So that's just to help prevent it from coming apart. Rusty hardware means bad hardware. So I'm using Dubro socket head screws because they fit, but also screwdriver fits in the socket, so you're less, if you're going to service it, you're less likely to stab into the covering. Just a lot easier. I think I'm going to remove this washer though. Just like that. This is done, so we're going to move on to the flap. All right, so this is one of those. These aren't the end of the world. It's not my favorite, but it's a flap, so I'm not going to complain about it a whole lot. Looks like we're using the same Futaba servos here, so definitely need to change it out. But what's worth noting is that it's this clevis. So the plastic actually looks pretty good. It keeps the lateral loads on the control horn from moving. So I'm going to try to do a little bit of inspection here once I get it disconnected and see what the clevis looks like on the opposite end and see what's going on there. Okay, so let me see if I can get you guys in a good angle here. So you can see down in there, there is a plastic clevis. That will not do. I am gonna try to finagle this out of here and replace it, as well as the servo. This was kind of a struggle to get out. The plastic still seems good, so we're gonna stick with this. I think Dubro still makes these. I'm almost sure that they do, but I think these are good for now. Again, this is a minor thing. We're still using a metal connecting rod, which was something that I was concerned about before, but yeah, that has to go. Well, this has been a whole thing. I had to get a pump to get this open so that I could get to the connection point and then fish it through here with a piece of string. But it's replaced. And just to show you up close, see, here's our ply control horn that's built into the flap, and then I've replaced it with a metal clevis. All right, and we have functioning flaps. Well, at least a functioning flap. I need to do the same for the other side. All right, so what are we left with? It pretty much exactly the same as we found it. There are some minor cosmetic differences, but we are much more confident in this hardware because plastic on plastic is bad idea. The only other thing that I think I will, in hindsight, go back and change is I'm going to add a little piece of fuel tubing to here. There should be something to hold this clevis closed. This is an old Great Plains style, and this is perfectly fine for now, and I think I just want to get a piece of fuel tubing that slips over top of this. The way this style works is this hook here prevents the fuel tubing from slipping back. So it's just cutting a little segment of silicone fuel tubing, slipping it over, which means I got to do all this linkage over again. So not a huge deal, but something I can easily do. But what we're left with also is a pile of junk. Really old servos. These are probably in the neighborhood of 30 years old. 30. Put that through your mind, 30. Okay, so we also have at least that old plastic as well. Well, maybe not as old. This was a kit from 1997, originally released. So pushing 30 here, but we've also got some rusty screws that, yeah, that's no good either. So we replaced those with high quality Dubro screws in the ailerons, and we're much happier with that. Additionally, I went ahead and I marked, I've got a silver Sharpie that is specifically in my bench for this, mark my ailerons and mark my flaps. So when I go to assemble the wing, I know which one goes where. Cool. So I hope that you learned something today. It's been productive time in the shop, and I feel much better about this moving forward. So as I go ahead and reconnect the wing for additional engine braking in, I can take a look at how the ailerons and the flaps and all that is behaving as well, so I can refine the radio programming, adjust my linkages, and refine that before going to the flying field. It's fine. I can make all of these little notes as we move forward and break in the engine. So what's up next? Continue to break in the engine, obviously, but also I've got additional servos I need to replace in the fuselage. So we'll touch on that a little bit next time as well. So thanks so much for tuning in, you guys. Make sure you're getting your hardware over at dubro.com and using that code Josh10. Save yourself a little bit of money, 10% at your checkout, and keep working on and restoring your flying works of art.